Welcome top news today.
ELISE VIEBECK Last updated 0232, January 2, 2018. Donald Trump has tweeted his support for protests taking place in Iran over weak economic conditions. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has called on U.S. President Donald Trump to lay out his strategy toward Iran as the country faces its largest protests in nearly 10 years, saying such a move would help bolster the United States in its conflict with North Korea. Predicting that the new year will be one of opportunity and extreme danger, Graham said Trump should withdraw from the Iran nuclear agreement in 2018 and give a national address explaining his approach. He warned that North Korea was watching how the United States conducted itself as protests continued in Iran. He argued that Trump's supportive messages for the Iranian people on Twitter were an inadequate response. President Trump is tweeting very sympathetically to the Iranian people, but you just can't tweet here. You have to lay out a plan. If I were President Trump, I'd lay out a plan as to how I would engage the regime, Graham said in an interview on CBS program Face the Nation. North Korea is watching how U.S. President Donald Trump responds to the unrest in Iran, Senator Lindsey Graham has warned. Graham warned that the United States had a chance to deliver some fatal blows to really bad actors in the new year, but that the international situation is precarious. Read more. Iran blocks Instagram, Telegram. Trump to Iran. World is watching. Tehran relaxes on dress code. Tweeting isn't enough. U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham has told U.S. President Donald Trump, "If we blink, God help us all," he said. The protests began on Thursday, Friday NZ time in response to economic woes in Iran, where growth unrelated to renewed oil exports has lagged significantly since international sanctions were lifted as part of the 2015 nuclear deal. As the protests spread, demonstrators have used them to highlight a variety of other problems, including government corruption and the need for reforms. The escalating unrest poses a challenge for Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, a moderate who appealed to reformists when he was re-elected in May by a landslide. Some have interpreted the protests as a response to Rouhani's failure to deliver on key economic promises he made after the nuclear deal. Demonstrators attend a protest over Iran's weak economy in Tehran. The last major wave of protests followed Iran's disputed presidential election in 2009. Graham spoke after 2 Iranian demonstrators were confirmed killed in the protests. Local media reported that about 200 people were arrested in Tehran on Saturday, Sunday NZT, and showed images of police firing a water cannon at demonstrators in the city center. On Sunday, Monday NZT, Iranian authorities blocked Instagram and the popular messaging app Telegram. Their intention was to maintain peace, according to state television, but protesters saw the move as a direct crackdown on their efforts, which have been fueled by publicity on social media. Trump has tweeted several times in support of the demonstrators, writing Sunday, Monday NZT that the United States was watching very closely for human rights violations. Big protests in Iran. People are finally getting wise as to how their money and wealth is being stolen and squandered on terrorism, Trump wrote. Looks like they will not take it any longer. Big protests in Iran. The people are finally getting wise as to how their money and wealth is being stolen and squandered on terrorism. Looks like they will not take it any longer. The USA is watching very closely for human rights violations, Donald J. Trump at Real Donald Trump December 31, 2017. Graham, who said it was not enough to watch and post on Twitter, called the protests evidence of former U.S. President Barack Obama's foreign policy failures. It tells us that the Obama approach of relieving sanctions has failed, he said. The Washington Post.